Rahim. Before the formal start of the webinar, the recitation of Holy Quran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
Good afternoon. I'm Amna Nisar Abbasi, Research Officer at the Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad. On behalf of our team, I warmly welcome our distinguished speakers and all the participants into our webinar on Iran's foundation, challenges and opportunities. Now, I would like to request President IRS, Ambassador Nadeem Riaz for the welcoming remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Amna. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a good afternoon to everyone. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on a subject which is of great importance. Iran and Saudi Arabia are two important countries. They are Muslim countries, but somehow their relationship has
I'm not hearing. Just a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Because I'm told that I'm not audible. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, thank you. So the thing is that the relationship between these two countries has been a difficult one. And from 2016, they haven't had any diplomatic relations. But now there is a possibility of a thaw. Now, I think it's important to analyze that, how the relationship is going to move forward. There are some opportunities, but there are also some large challenges. I think today's webinar will be able to put forth some of these opportunities and challenges and what it basically means for the region and for the countries, especially of the GCC, especially like, countries like us, which has a relationship with both these countries. So I would really be keenly listening to what the panelists have to say about this particular opportunity, which is there, which looks like it's there on the horizon for the improving relations between these two large Muslim countries. Thank you very much, Amna, for organizing this, and I'm keenly looking forward to listening to the distinguished panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The newly elected Iranian president, who is known to be a hardliner, would certainly impact the regional scenario. The region, the nature and the kind of impact remains to be seen as the time progresses. Today's discussion would revolve around the possible challenges, as Ambassador Nadeem also highlighted. The challenges and opportunities for both Tehran and Riyadh in order to stabilize the region and the future of Iran-Saudi relations. To discuss this, we have a panel of 3 speakers today who would apprise us with valuable views on this important and interesting topic. Before I move on to the first speaker, I would like to mention that every speaker would have 10 minutes at their hands. And at the end of the valuable views by the speakers, question answer session will be conducted. The participant can use raise hand option or paste their question in the chat box. With this now, I will move to our first speaker, who is Lieutenant Colonel retired Tariq Niaz Bhatti. Mr. Bhatti is a graduate of Command and Staff College, Quetta, and has done Masters in Social Sciences from National University of Modern Languages. He has diverse experiences in the fields of logistics, intelligence, and counterterrorism. During the course of his employment in the Pakistan Army, he has served under counter-terrorism department for years. As an ardent student of contemporary history, he has contributed articles on regional politics in various national dailies, especially covering Middle East, South and Southeast Asia. With this, over to you, sir. Mr. Bhatti, are you there? Mr. Bhatti.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Ma'am, I am not getting your voice at my side. You may ask the other panelists to speak first. Let me resolve this issue of audio. I'll take a couple of minutes for that. Thank you.
Okay. I think I should move to the second speaker. Our second speaker is Dr. Syed Kandil Abbas. Dr. Syed Kandil Abbas did his MS and PhD in International Relations from University of Tehran, Iran, and presently associated with School of Politics and International Relations, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. He is HEC approved PhD supervisor and has also supervised more than 35 MPhil and 2 PhD theses. He has authored various research articles in national and international journals and contributed chapters in several books, national and international both. He has also presented several research papers and attended workshops on national and international level. Dr. Kandil Abbas is member advisory board of Center for Afghanistan, Middle East and Africa associated with Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. And he frequently participates in Center current affairs program of national and international media as a political analyst. With this brief intro, over to you, sir. Dr. Kandil.
Amna, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are. Sir, you are audible.
Okay. So thank you very much, Amna, and Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear students, actually, today's topic is, in fact, very important topic because of the changes we are having in these days about the region of Middle East and especially in the Muslim world, because both Iran and Saudi Arabia are playing a key role in the Muslim world, and based on their key role, 57 Muslim states are playing very important role in international and regional dynamics. So till the time we are not able to understand interaction between Iran and Saudi Arabia, we will not be able to understand how different Muslim countries are influencing regional and international politics. So to understand the dynamics of relationship between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran, very briefly, we need to understand historical background of their relationship. So first of all, it is very important to understand that during pre-Islamic era, there were certain differences between Arab and Iran. These differences were based on ethnic and identity issues. And both the societies were having differences based on Arab and Ajam division. At that time, in fact, Arabs were feeling themselves as superior to other societies and nations, and Ajam was known as stranger. So they they were calling everybody, those who were not Arabs, particularly Iranians. At that time, it was Pars. So they were calling them Ajam. So that was very serious issue between these two societies. And based on that, they were having a lot of differences with each other. Those differences were, on the one hand, identity differences, and on the other hand, these were shifted into cultural differences. So after the start of Islamization process in Persia, when Muslim reached to the Persia, they in fact accepted Islam as a modern concept of that time and modern ideology, and they started to having interaction with Arab society. But again, it is very interesting to understand that despite the fact they accepted Islam, but they resisted towards Arabism and urbanization, and they refused to adopt Arab culture. It is very important that at that time, wherever the message of Islam was conveying through messengers, at the same time and simultaneously, Arab culture was also expanded at that time. So even today, when we are trying to show ourselves as a follower of Islam, so at the same time, in different Muslim societies, we try to present ourselves along with Arab culture, but it is not accepted by Iranians. So in later period, we have the period of Safavids dynasty in Iran, which was started from 1501 to 1736. This period is also again very important because the ethnic differences shifted into religious differences as well, because during the Safavids period, Iran announced that the Shia religion as a state religion, and based on this concept, they had differences with Ottoman Empire and different Arab states at that time. So in this way, their ethnic diversity, that differences also shifted into religious differences. So during the Pahlavi period in present century, last century, the modern state emerged in Iran, and
Dr. Kandil?
am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So at that time, in fact, during the period of Reza Shah, again, a lot of differences emerged between Iran and Arab societies. But at that time, because of political inclination of Iran and countries towards the United States and commonalities as well. But in 1979, when Islamic Revolution, we have Islamic Revolution in Iran. After this revolution, from both the sides, so after 1979, in both the societies, another competition started because both the countries were claiming leadership of the Muslim world. So based on their claim for leadership of the Muslim world, uh, in post-1979 era, a proxy war started between Riyadh and Tehran in different Muslim countries. So that is still continuing, but recently we have another development in last 2-3 years after the emergence of Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi system. These differences were instigated by different elements, especially prominent Okay, sorry, I don't know. Repeatedly, this software is disconnecting. Uh,
Sorry,
after
sorry, carry on.
after hanging of Ayatollah name, these differences highlighted, and in fact, in 2016, diplomatic relation between Tehran and Riyadh were cut off. So Saudi Arabia started to confront with Iran after that on different levels, and Iran also started to confront with Saudi Arabia. And we have proxy instigation of proxy war in Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, even Palestine, and different countries. Although they were not having dialogue with each other, but their proxy was going on. So now important is this, that Iran and Saudi Arabia have had diplomatic relations with each other, but from 2016 these diplomatic relations were cut off. So Saudi Arabia 34 Islamic military alliance against terrorism, and Iranian took this alliance as anti-Iran alliance, because Iran and the countries which were aligned with Iran were not invited to join this alliance. That has more created differences between Iran and Saudi Arabia. But recently, in last month, from both the recently from both sides, the process of normalization is started. And in Baghdad, they had meetings with each other, and they were agreed to normalize their relationship. And now they are working on normalization of their diplomatic relations. So the new elected Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, although he is from conservative bloc, but he has supported normalization process with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in his first press conference, and it is showing that both the countries are having positive views about each other. So very quickly, I will just highlight 2-3 challenges which are coming from differences between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So first of all is the Iran-Saudi Arabia conflict and its impact on the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. That Islamic Cooperation, OIC, has already been very ineffective to resolve the problems of the Muslim world. But the confrontation between Iran and Saudi Arabia has seriously influenced OIC. Secondly, the OIC is the largest international body after the UN, comprising 57 Muslim states. backed by Saudi Arabia in its diplomatic move to in its harsh anti-Iranian resolution issued on January 21, 2016. So this is one of the major challenges. Another issue is the confrontation between the two countries has upsetting several Muslim countries, particularly in the Middle East, because we have Syrian conflict, we have conflict in Yemen, Bahrain, Syria, and even Palestine, Iraq. All these in all these conflicts, the role of Iran and Saudi Arabia is prominent. So if they are resolving their mutual problems with each other, I believe that more than 80% conflicts and problems in the Muslim world will be resolved with the help of Iran and Saudi Arabia. So these are in fact opportunities, because prospects for integration in the Muslim world are based on integration and nearness between Tehran and Riyadh. So when we will be able to resolve the problems between Iran and Saudi Arabia, I think then most of the Muslim states will be able to confront with poverty and backwardness, and the major portion of their budgets, which is spending on their military purposes and security issues, then they will be able to spend their budget for their development. So lastly, I believe that the process of normalization will have very positive impact on Pakistan's dynamics as well, because Pakistan is seriously affected by confrontation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, because we have very good relations with Tehran because Iran is our neighbor, and we have excellent relations with Saudi Arabia historically as well. But their confrontation has resulted to that Pakistan is not able to benefit from both the countries in its original way. So I believe that in case of resolution between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Pakistan will be able to benefit it from the one hand potentials of Arab states, and on the other hand Iran. And then I think Muslim world will be able to gain its strong role in the regional and international dynamics. I thank you very much, and I'm ready for if there was any question.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable views. I think Mr. Bhatti is with us. Mr. Bhatti,
Yes.
are you there?
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear
Yes, yes, we can. Kindly share your views.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing this discussion, I'll start with Iran. Iran, with a population of 83 million, is home to one of the world's oldest civilizations. It had been and is a center of Islamic culture and learning. Iran and Kingdom severed diplomatic relations in 2016 as a result of differences over certain issues. After the Iran nuclear deal, commonly known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Iran was cruising smoothly until 2018, when Trump administration opted to go out of the JCPOA and reimposed strict international sanctions, which badly hits its oil revenues and energy sectors. As a result, Iranian currency to date has depreciated by 45%. Sale of oil also dropped from 4 million barrel per day peak to under 1 million barrel per day. President-elect Saeed Ibrahim Raisi faces daunting challenges today in the form of a sluggish economy, massive unemployment, double-digit inflation, biting the purchasing power of a common Iranian, and shortage of housing units, leads to say COVID-19, which further aggravated the economic crisis in Iran. Now going over to Saudi Arabia, is the largest country in the Middle East by its size and has approximately 34 million population. Since its inception, it has seen phenomenal growth under Ibn Saud, both in the economy and social sector, and can rightly be termed as land of achievements. Saudi-Iran relations dipped to a new low with breaking off diplomatic relations in 2016. Like Iran, Saudi government is also facing dip in oil income due to factors like low demand and impact of COVID-19. Saudi Arabia, along with its coalition partners, is fighting the Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have attacked its oil installation with ballistic missiles and drones and caused extensive damage. The war is turning out to be a major human disaster for Yemen and is a big drain on Saudi resources. Both Iran and Kingdom have their peculiar stances on ongoing war in Yemen. Now, as reported in the international press, Iraqi Prime Minister took the initiative to arrange a dialogue between the two rival countries. Initial reports suggest that the chances for a breakthrough are bright, and the effort is seen by most of the analysts in the Middle East as a silver lining in the dark clouds. Now, coming over to the challenges. Numerous economic and social challenges are faced by both countries because of their over-dependence on oil revenues and mutual rivalry. As the world moves to renewable form of energy, oil is most likely to further lose its value, thus lowering the income substantially for both Iran and the kingdom. Regional disputes are likely to cast dark shadows on economic prospects of both countries, if not resolved as soon as possible. Now, due to aggressive diplomatic efforts by Israel, the prospects of an early rejoining of Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action by the United States are not very bright, especially in an early time frame. Now I'll go over to the opportunities for Iran. Recent dialogue between the two rivals provide a golden opportunity to mend their relations and work together towards economic progress and political stability. Sayyid Ibrahim Raisi has the vision and the experience to take Iran out of the difficult economic situation. Moreover, mending its relation with Kingdom, President-elect can ward off US efforts for a pressured regime change in Iran. Now, reduced tension with the Kingdom will help boost oil income and early return of US back to Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. This is another additional opportunity available. Now, with enhanced oil revenues, Iran can take up mega projects like Iran Rub or Iran River in English, which will connect Caspian Sea with the Gulf of Oman and can open up tremendous economic opportunities, not only for Iran, but for the entire region. Opportunities are there for Iran to change its economic outlook and convert from oil-based economy to the knowledge-based economy. Now, Iranian past, its glorious past, vindicates the assertion. Now I move on to the opportunities for the kingdom. Any agreement of peaceful coexistence between kingdom and Iran will help Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to implement his Vision 2030, which includes $500 billion investment in the new city of Neom. Ending war in Yemen will save precious kingdom resources, which can be diverted to different development projects and uplifting of social sectors in the kingdom. A joint Saudi-Irani stand in OPEC will go a long way in boosting oil income for both the countries. And under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, kingdom is already on course to change from oil-based economy to knowledge-based economy. Kingdom has a large youth population trained in foreign universities to work in its future technology projects and diversify its economy. I thank you all for a patient hearing. I'll take the question at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views. Now I would like to, I will move to our last speaker. Our last speaker is Dr. Fozia Amin. She's a lecturer at the Department of International Relations, National Defense University. She did her MSc in Defense and Diplomatic Studies from Fatima Jinnah University, Rawalpindi, and MPhil and PhD from MDU. Her areas of interest include in Iranian and Middle Eastern politics, power politics of Indo-Pacific, nuclear politics of South Asia, and other regional issues. She has a number of national and international publications on her credit. She has contributed book chapters in different books published by the Center for Pakistan and Gulf Studies and National Defense University. She has participated and represented Pakistan in a number of international conferences, seminars, and bilateral dialogue abroad. With this, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Amna. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. And thanks to Institute of Regional Studies for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak in this wonderful session on Iran-Saudi relations 2021, challenges and opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, while the Saudi-Iranian relations have mostly been shaped by peaceful rivalry since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, they increasingly turned hostile following the so-called Arab Spring. Now, building on recent dynamics of the Gulf region, high-level politicians of Saudi Arabia and Iran have signaled serious willingness for dialogue and reconciliation, as the other speakers are also, they have also mentioned in their presentations. It's my argument here that these renewed efforts are primarily motivated by security and economic concerns, but have also been supported through a series of informal interactions and different societal level. While dialogue seems possible and desirable, it is long-term prospects of this scenario will be challenged by changing regional dynamics, and the perspective political will be overcome historical constructs of rivalry and regional cooperation and competition. We have seen that in an interview on April 27th this year, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman explained that Riyadh still had problems with Iran's negative behavior, referring to Iran's nuclear program, missiles, and support to militias in the region, which is causing serious concerns for Saudi Arabia. However, at the same time, the Crown Prince also expressed the kingdom's openness for new chapter with the Gulf's neighbor. He was stating that kingdom wants to have good and special relations with Iran. While in response to the Saudi Arabia, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman also welcomed what he called a change of tone from Saudi Arabia, and expresses hope for easing tensions and cooperations between both. So with this, these encouraging signals seem to build on a process that has been going on behind the scenes for much longer. Already in mid-April 2021, we have seen earlier that an Iraqi official, he also stated that the Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi has also set up a mediation process in the country, where Saudi and Iranian officials held direct talks with the aim of facilitating exchange and cooperation, especially on the ongoing conflict in Yemen and the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action JCPOA, which is also known as Iranian Nuclear Deal. So now, what are the push factors towards peace? Then, as I was explaining earlier, The major push factors are economy and security. Because taking a closer look, it is obvious that both countries share certain challenges that are related to climate change and their oil-based economies, and pursue, at least to some degree, similar interests such as Iraq's stability and integrity and maritime security. However, the current efforts for dialogue need to be considered in light of increasing threat perception of both countries' security situations and its respective influence on the economy. These basically applies not only to both conflict parties but also to Iraq as the mediator. Following former US President Trump's withdrawal from the JCPOA, as I was mentioning earlier as well, in May 2018, and his maximum pressure campaign, which he launched against Iran, which included a comprehensive sanction regime. Iran faced serious economic hardship. While Trump's maximum pressure campaign did not achieve the intended regime surrender, it nevertheless, weakened Iran's political and economic and strategic position in the region. Although Iran remains powerful and able to support its proxy forces in Lebanon, Syria, we have also seen its presence in the Yemen and Iraq. This support has nevertheless become more costly. So, and furthermore, throughout Trump presidency, Iran's security interests have been seriously undermined and violated, be it through the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, former commander of the Quds forces, or a series of powerful blows of Israel targeting Iran's nuclear program and militia proxies in Syria and Iraq. My last point I'm just going to conclude is that taking the recent victory in presidential elections of more conservative and hardline actors into account, the current Iranian government may regard the emerging dialogue with Saudi Arabia also as a chance to counter the heightened security threats and to restore some of its diplomatic achievements before leaving office. With concrete dialogue efforts being in place, a more conservative government could be compelled to build on them and continue some sort of exchange, most likely in a less publicly admitted manner. Hence, being in line with Iran's long-standing efforts to engage in negotiations with Arab neighbors and in the development of a regional security framework, Iraq's mediation efforts fell on fertile grounds and are publicly welcomed. And in summing up the whole debate, I would say that a particular combination of international and national dynamic as well as geopolitical, economic and security factors have persuaded Saudi Arabia and Iran that dialogue is the better option in comparison to continuously escalating hostilities for now. So while both sides have declared their political will and openness for increased dialogue, the current window of opportunity remains fragile and unstable. Even if Iraq manages to mediate and establish some dialogue channels, tensions will surely arise on sensitive topics or discussed that touch upon the respective country's security, economic and regional interest. This unique chance should not be dismissed easily and instead be further supported by informal dialogue efforts on the different societal levels in order to number one, it is to provide possible ideas for cooperation even on sensitive issues, and number two, to guarantee a sustainable change in attitudes and the overcoming of historical constructs of rivalry. The roads towards peace in the Gulf will prove challenging and difficult, but nevertheless, uh, these are possible. Once again, thank you so much for your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fozia, for giving insight into the topic. Now it's time for opening the question answer session. Before I take question from the participant, I would like to initiate my own question. Uh, would newly elected president of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, be able to impart a balanced approach to address the regional issues or not? Any one of the panelists can answer this question.
Yes, if I may. Uh, ground
Yes,
realities
Dr.
are traveling in such a way that the possibility that you have put in your question is quite possible. Because after the Kenyan government in Israel, from Netanyahu to the Naftali Bennett, now Bennett administration has come up with a different kind of approach to US joining the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Yesterday, rather on 27th, their new foreign minister, Mr. Lapid, met Mr. Blinken and stressed the need for taking Israel into confidence before such a decision is taken. Now, with such diplomatic, you may say, or political offensive coming from a country like Israel, far away from Tehran, the new president-elect Sayyid Ibrahim Raisi rather he should take some policy decisions, change his policy towards such regional issues as is our mending relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yes, he must. Otherwise, there will be an economic loss, there will be a political pressure building on Iran. So he should. Thank you.
Dr. Kandir, would you like to add on it?
Yes, I believe that the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia during the period of Ibrahim Raisi will be influenced by a lot of regional and international dynamics. Because on the one hand, we are waiting for Iran's dialogue with the big powers to revive the JCPOA. And similarly, on the other hand, we have increasing confrontation between Iran and Israel, because this time we have ultra-conservative president in Iran and ultra-nationalist president in Israel, prime minister in Israel, because Naftali is also a very aggressive personality. So it is expected during this period, the tension between Iran and Israel will increase, and Iran is having potential to threat Israel through their proxies. So that will be seriously influencing Iran's relations with Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia's interest in Syria and Yemen are quite different than the interests of Iran. And similarly, Iranian policy towards West and the United States is quite different than the policy of Saudi Arabia. I believe that we should understand the dynamics of Tehran-Riyadh relationship under the scenarios of under the global and regional scenarios.
Dr. Fozia,
Thank you.
would you like to add on it?
Yeah, thank you, Amna. So to me, I think Raisi's presidency does not mean a drastic change in Iran's foreign policy, as it has always been a consensus-based approach and is approved as a final word by the supreme leader. But still, the president is going play a major role in the Iran's approach towards the problems in the Middle East. The most important concern is nuclear deal, which about which Raisi has made it clear that he will honor the deal that is approved by the supreme leader. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much. I can see there's a question by Nabila Jafar, Senior Research Analyst at Institute of Asian Studies. What kind of adjustments are expected from Iran by the Saudi leadership for the normalization of relations? To what extent Saudi Arabia will reciprocate on Iran's concern? Please apprise on the major challenges. Who would like to answer this question?
If I can, if you may allow me. Saudi concerns are about nuclear and ballistic missile proliferation by the Iranian government. And in this regard, the Iranians have declared that these two questions or these 2 points are out of discussion. This is a very hard stance taken by a hardliner president. But once you go for some give and take, you need to soften your stance. I expect and I pray that if the situation between these 2 countries are to improve, something has to be done about these 2 issues. Well, if Iran and Saudi Arabia agree to kind of a ceasefire in Yemen, then definitely these 2 points can also come up and can be discussed. Well, in negotiations, you always expect good things. But there are 2 points of differences. And that is what the American stance is also regarding Iranian nuclear program, because Iranians have started enriching uranium by 60% as of now. And not yet a weapon grade enrichment, but still they are enriching for presenting their case very strongly in the US or the other member countries of the JCPOA. So I believe that with the new president-elect in office by August, I hope that these points can come up for discussion. And if they do, because both the countries are facing financial problems, may it be Kingdom whose reserves were as high as over 700 billion US dollars. Now they have dropped to 467 approximately by year 2020. Similar is the case with the Iran. If they have to up their production, they need technology, they need foreign investment, and that will come only if the US is back in joint JCPOA arrangement. So if these things have to be done, probably Iran has to soften its stance. And those policies definitely, as observed by one of the panelists, that the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is authorized to take such decision. But I think the proximity between these 2, Ibrahim Raisi and Khamenei, may result in a softened up stance. That is my expectation. Thank you.
Dr. Kandil, would you like to add on it?
I think it's okay.
Okay. I can see there is a question by Dr. Mujaddid from Air University. What role can Pakistan play in normalizing Iran-Saudi relations? Any one of the panelists can answer this question.
Okay, I think that we have lost this opportunity because in the history, in the past, we had two times this opportunity to play our role to bring closer both Iran and Saudi Arabia to each other. First one was during the period of Nawaz Sharif, and second was during the period of Imran Khan recently. And both the prime ministers highlighted that we are going to appoint focal person in case of Iran and Saudi Arabia, and we will play mediatory role in this regard. But our foreign policy was not proactive in this regard, and we remained waiting for more invitation from both the countries. But I think now they found better option to play their mutual relations with each other, and that role has taken by Iraq. And Iraq is acceptable both for Iran and Saudi Arabia, because on the one hand, Iran is having deep influence in Iraq because of majority population is Shia. And on the other hand, Saudi Arabia is also considering Iraq as based on Arab nationalism, and they believe that Iraqis are Arab and they will consider interest of Saudi Arabia. So they found another option. But on the other hand, the excellent relation we have with Iran and Saudi Arabia, this positive factor can be very useful for Pakistan's diplomacy. And I think that Pakistan can also play a role of facilitator in this regard, because we have very close relations with Saudi Arabia as well as with Iran. So if our diplomats should adopt proactive foreign policy, then we will be able to play a positive role. Otherwise, already we have lost this opportunity.
Thank you so much,
Just
Dr.
if I may
Hayat.
add something here.
Sure, sir, sure.
Pakistan position at the moment, we have good relations with Iran and Saudi Arabia. Until we are asked by both the countries' administration to facilitate any kind of dialogue, Pakistan should not enter or should not offer its services for this particular region. Because as far as Iraq is concerned, the other very sacred center of Shia Islam is Najaf, and there sits the Ali al-Sistani, probably his name is. That is one of the revered leader in Shia Islam, the other leader after Ali Khamenei. So there are many other reasons, as Dr. Kandil has pointed out, for both the countries to agree, because the population, there is 34% probably Sunnis and 66% Shia in Iraq. Then Iraq, Iran have been fighting for Arabistan, where the major oil reserves of Iran are there, or Khuzestan they call it now. So there is some match, some commonality there with Iraq to facilitate this dialogue. And I think Iraqis are doing a good thing by joining these two, by bringing these two countries on the table. So my take is that until we are asked to facilitate, which I think both the countries do not need at the moment, so we should not participate and wait for the invitation to do so. Thank you.
I can see President IRS analysis. His observation is, given the deep divergence between Iran and Saudi Arabia, I don't think that there will be normalization of relations in the near future. Tension may reduce, but a complete war is not expected. He is asking for the comments of panelists.
I have one point to share that look at the internal security situation in Iran. There have been multiple attacks. Their top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was killed in broad daylight. There was an attack on Natanz, where the uranium centrifuges are located. Some of them were damaged. The other quite a number of them. And latest couple of days back, there was a attack on Karaj centrifuge fabrication facility. There, the centrifuges were being fabricated to be replaced in Iran. So who is doing that? And with what kind of ease they are doing it? It's all related to economics. Until the country's economics is good, you just cannot take on the enemy within the country. Now, if the Mossad, the other day I was reading the last interview probably of the ex-Mossad chief, Yoshi Cohen, if I'm not wrong, his name was, and he indirectly admitted to have done all these three things, which indirectly, not that we did it. And what are they trying to do? They are trying to slow down the Iranian nuclear, acquiring a nuclear weapon, but whatever they claim. So if such things start happening, that means the social fabric is under immense pressure. So until the economy improves, and that will improve until there is a rapprochement between the two countries, there is a negotiated settlement between the two countries, Iran and Kingdom. There is no prosperity is going to come to Iran. And until that comes, you just cannot improve your internal security situation. So the ground realities are dictating to both the countries to do something in such a way that their economy improves. There are more revenues, you can spend more on your internal security, as well as you can go about doing your external security also, doing good for your external security also. So I think it is the need of the time that they sit in their issues, soften up their stances, beat each other, may take weeks, probably months, but they must reach to some agreement to give their people a good life, scare-free life, I may say, that they do have a right to. Thank you.
Dr. Fozia, will you agree with the President IRS assessment?
I think he has rightly mentioned this notion, and I completely agree. And Mr. Tariq Niaz has already explained it very well.
I can see a raised hand from Imran Sardar, Senior Research Analyst of Institute of Asian Studies. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Amna, for giving me the opportunity. I want to ask a question to Dr. Kandil Abbas. So the nuclear dimension in Saudi and Iran, especially, is crucial in having a sort of normalization between the two countries. Recently, Saudi Foreign Minister, as the news is circulating, that has asked the IAEA for rapid and comprehensive inspection of all Iranian nuclear sites. So in the current scenario, how do you see the current statement by the Saudi Foreign Minister? Do you think that normalization efforts are resilient enough to trash the harsh statements from both sides? What is the impact of this statement?
I think the nuclear program of Iran is not the problem between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and the main objective of Iranian nuclear program is not Arab countries, because Iran is focusing on the nuclear program of Israel, and their main objective is to counter Israeli nuclear power. So that is why when they started dialogue with IAEA and when they started dialogue with big power, especially United States, they offered that they are ready to roll back and even cap their nuclear program in case of nuclear-free Middle East process. So for that purpose, they also demanded that Israeli nuclear program should also be rolled back, and that must be kept. And based on that, they have never asked for any demand towards Saudi Arabia or UAE or any other Arab country, because these Arab countries are very far from nuclear capacity and capability. So that is why I believe that Saudi Arabia and UAE are taking Iranian nuclear program as a political issue, not as a security issue, because the use of nuclear weapon against any Arab country is not in the agenda of Iranian military forces. So their main target is Israel, and according to their strategy, they are still believing in elimination of Israel. They have never accepted Israel. So I believe that if Iran and Saudi Arabia are trying to resolve their mutual problems, Iranian nuclear program will not be considered as an obstacle.
I think, sir, as you said, if it is Israel is the target, then the Iran and Saudi must be united on the nuclear terms to face the common enemy. But this is not the case. Saudi is insisting the IAEA for strict compliance.
That will be, I think, when they will start their mutual dialogue, this will be resolved, because Iran is even offering that if peaceful Iranian nuclear program can help Arab countries or any other Muslim country, they are ready to share their capability with these countries. And even they practically offered to Muslim countries, especially Arab neighbors, that Iran can help them in terms of agriculture, medical, and energy. And Iran can provide them nuclear facilities to cope with agricultural, medical, and energy needs. So I believe that is in favor of Arab countries, because Iran never claimed that their program is military-grade nuclear program. And inspectors of International Atomic Energy Agency have also never found any evidence that Iran is pursuing a military-grade nuclear program. And I really believe that because of religious verdict and fatwa from their religious leadership and supreme leader, they are considering production of mass destruction weapons, including nuclear weapon, as haram and big sin.
Thank you, sir.
I can see another question that is asked by Usman Khan Orakzai to Dr. Fozia. You have mentioned in your presentation that Iraq is also interested in mediation between Saudi Arabia and Iran. What are Iraqi interests in mediating Saudi-Iran relations? Dr. Fozia.
Thank you so much, Amna, once again. Iraq has great interest in mediating Saudi-Iranian relations, as I was mentioning in my presentation, since the country itself experienced at first hand the competition between the two rivals and their respective allies. Indeed, post US and post IS, Iraq faces tremendous challenges regarding its security sector and rule of law, as it is still frequently challenged by Iranian-backed militias. Conflicts are slowly rising between Shia militias loyal to Iran and those loyal to the Iraqi religious schools, as well as between the Shia militias and the Sunni tribal militias, who receive fewer positions of power and less effective weaponry and equipment than their Shia counterparts. On a strategic level, the Iraqi government is inter alia, trying to repel Turkey's repeated violations of their northern borders, which aim at attacking Kurdish militias. So, facing the power vacuum the US have left behind on a regional level, the Iraqi government, along with Egypt and Jordanian seek to restore an Arab regional diplomatic role after the decade-long failure of the Arab League. So for these reasons, I would say that the Iraqi government aims to strengthen its position and play a bigger role in the region, increasing its cooperation with Arab states while securing its national interest by mediating between the two powers of the region and avoiding their Cold War, Iran and Saudi Arabia. While Iraq may also face its own internal challenges, as I was explaining earlier as well, it constitutes a stable or a suitable mediator. The Khadimi administration has shown that it seeks to better balance and counter external influence within Iraq. Therefore, by displaying Iraq's interest in convening constructive, honest, and meaningful dialogue between Iran and Saudi Arabia, it has also gained the respective parties' trust and respect, which inversely, or I would say inversely, could establish more stability in Iraq. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fozia. Now I will take another question, then I will wrap up the session. This question is by Dr. Tathir. What options can be communicating channels for harmonious relations between both of countries, particularly in context of change regime in Iran, and what a role China can play for the side purpose? Dr. Kandir, would you like to comment on it?
Sorry, you were not audible for me. Can you repeat your question?
What options can be communicating channels for harmonious relations between both of countries, particularly in context of change regime in Iran, and what a role China can play for the said purpose?
It is very, very interesting question because on the one hand, has announced to invest $400 billion in, and at the same time, China has invested huge money in Israel and Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries as well. So I believe that China's foreign policy is based on focusing on geo-economic issues rather geopolitical issues. So this strategy is very successful for China. So when they are investing huge money in the Middle East and they are having long-term objectives in the Middle East, so definitely when they are coming with $400 billion in Iran, so they will never prefer to have any conflict in this region. So their presence in the region and their long-term objective will bring more peace and stability in this region. And their simultaneous investment in Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, even in UAE, that will become source of peace in this region, and they will be able to bring these countries closer to each other.
I would add to.
Sure, ma'am.
I would like to add one.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. There is a potential. There is a choice of potential new allies in this whole game, as Dr. Tathir was mentioning. China. New allies is not surprising as both countries have become more active and involved in the region over the past decade, be it through military intervention as in the case of Russia, or through deepened economic relations and agreements as in the case of China. Since both countries also cultivate diplomatic, economic, and strategic relations with Iran, they may rather welcome the Saudi-Iranian rapprochement and not endanger the initiative. Rather, they would appreciate the rapprochement initiatives between Saudi Arabia and Iran. However, it will remain challenging for the Saudi leaders to harmonize its position as traditional US ally with its current approach of building new economic and security alliances. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fozia. Colonel Tariq, would you like to add on it?
Just one line reply that there's no possibility of a change as is being talked about in regime change in Iran, because Iran is, as it was reported in the international press, that Iran is going to adopt a new form of voting, that certain people are given right, probably those who are the party members like in China, that they can only vote in the forthcoming our next presidential election, or the election of the president. So it will be totally confined to the party, the government, party, and its members only who can vote. So I don't think so. Internally, the governing body is pretty strong. Even after that economic turmoil, I don't find, because otherwise the Chinese, pointed out by both the panelists, would have invested this huge money. I promised to invest this huge money in Iran. Thank you.
Due to the shortage of time, I just wrap up the session here. Now I would like to request Imran Sardar, Syed Imran Sardar, Senior Research Analyst, Institute of Regional Studies, for the concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Amna. A lot of already has been said. I would just add that if we look at the history, the personalities do matter in the context of foreign policy making process. The pace that created by President Rafsanjani back in 1997, I think, and Mohammad Khatami in 2005 was rolled back with Ahmadinejad coming in power. But if you look today, with Raisi coming in power, the momentum of rapprochement that has been set by the President Rouhani has I think, taken a positive turn, with Raisi's goodwill gesture on mending ties with Saudi Arabia in his first speech. But in the shadow of open criticism to the United States and Saudi Arabia's continued pressure on Iran over its nuclear program, which this is the point I think Dr. Syed Kandil Abad disagree with me. Anyways, the rapprochement in the shadow of these things may face some hiccups. For Saudis, Raisi is not going to make a big difference, as the tone has already been set, as the panelists also said, with the diplomatic engagement at Baghdad in April 2021. With the blessings of Supreme Leader of Iran and Saudis, Mohammed bin Salman. But I think Raisi does have a role. He can expedite the process and take the normalization effort to a meaningful level in a very short span of time. Since he's very close to the Supreme Leader as well as the IRGC. Panelists have emphasized the importance of friendly relationship between the two rivals in the current situation where there are nuclear talks are going on. While agreeing with the panelists, I would like to add that good relationships are not only important but crucial given the deteriorating economic situation of Iran that is fueling frustration among the youth, which has its implication for the region as well. So Iran needs to soften its stance without compromising on its core demands and listen to the opposing views and voices. This will surely provide ground for further normalization between the two countries. Saudi also needs Iran to end regional tensions. So coordination and working relationship between the two historical rivals is not only mutually beneficial but also highly required at this stage. So both Saudi and Iran are equally important for Pakistan as well. A relationship, good or bad, as the panelists have already said, the relationship, good or bad, does have an impact on Pakistan society. Pakistan is a country that invariably feels the heat of intense relations between the two countries. Similarly, friendly relationship between the two countries will have a lasting impact on Pakistan religious fabric as well. Thus, Pakistan, I would say, supports the normalization efforts taking place to bridge the gap between the two countries in the larger context of its people, economy, regional and international peace. With this, I say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.